I want to shift a little bit and talk a little college football, as it's college football bowl season over here coming up. I got to ask the first question over here. Have you and Coach Ryan Day had the opportunity to sit down, talk, maybe bury the hatchet a little bit? I think everything that you said, by the way, was kind of right on target over here. But ultimately, I want to ask the question.
I didn't have a hatchet. Just understand how this came about. They're doing college game day at Notre Dame.
Right.
And the guy comes and he has this show there, very popular, and I'm a guest on it. There's thousands of Notre Dame people. And they asked me what I thought about Notre Dame. What am I? I'm standing there by a statue of Lou Holtz. I'm going to say, I don't think Notre Dame has a chance. I have a respect for Ohio State. I coached there under Woody Hayes. We were fortunate enough to win the national championship. But then we ran 7 yards in a cloud of dust. And you got to be able to run the football when everybody in the stadium knows you're going to run it. And I just didn't believe Ohio State had the capability of doing that the last couple of years. You look at Alabama, you look at Georgia, you look at Clemson with ETN when they had those people. They were always able to run the football when everybody knew you're going to run it. Then you can throw it when nobody knows you're going to throw it. That's where your play action passes come in. And I said I didn't think Ohio State would win the game because they weren't tough enough physically on offense. I didn't mean that disparagingly about Ohio State. I was raised in Ohio. My father, I went to college at Kent State in Ohio. So I love Ohio. Fight the team across that field, show them. I love that state. It's a great state. However, when you talk about being great, I just think that team was. I think under Urban Meyer, they ran the football as well as played great defense. Ohio State's a fine team. 3 times Ohio State had 4th and 1 against Notre Dame. Failed all 3 times. The end of the game, they have this far to go. Time for 1 play. They run 1 play, and they have to do a video replay to see if he scored. Mm-hmm. And we only had 10 people on the field. They said, why'd you only have 10? I said, well, I thought that's all we needed. But it was a game that Notre Dame should have won. They had 4th and 20, and they convert on it prior to that 1-yard run. So I didn't want to do anything during this season, but under the type of atmosphere I was in, I made a decision to say what I felt my heart was right and proper. Now, I wrote Coach Day about 3 weeks ago to explain it to him, to congratulate him on his year. And I haven't heard from him, not expect to hear from him. I'm comfortable with who I am, where I am, what I did, and how I handled it.
Well, I certainly hope that Coach Day decides to reach out to you, and because obviously I think you're somebody who is not just beloved at Notre Dame, but really across the – and you mentioned the fact you were part of a national championship team at Ohio State, and so – I'll move on from that, but that's something that I certainly, as somebody who's a fan of college football, hopes. Let's get to the college football playoff over here. Now, the big news being Florida State being left out of the college football playoffs as a Power 5 conference that's undefeated, a Power 5 team in a Power 5 conference that was undefeated for the very first time and the only time, because they'll be moving on to a different system next year. Do you think the committee made the right decision?
Well, 10 years ago, when they first came out, and I was doing TV, I complained that 4 is not enough. You have a minimum that all 5 conference champions should automatically be invited, period. You want to be invited in the championship race, then win your conference race. I saw the first game of the year when LSU played against Florida State right here in Orlando. I went to the game. I was very impressed with Florida State. The first half, LSU sort of dominated. The second half was all Florida State. I was very impressed with them. I went up and I spoke to the Florida State quarterback club the last week of the season. I had a chance to sit down with Coach Lavelle, and I want to tell you, there is an impressive young man. See, when you go into a situation, whether it be business or coaching, Andy, you got to go through 4 stages. First stage, you have to learn how to be competitive. You learn how to be competitive because you block and tackle and do the fundamentals better than anybody else does. Then you have to go through the stage and learn how to win. You learn how to win because you do little things. Everybody does the big thing. It's a little thing. Then you go through stage 3. You have to learn how to handle winning. And once you start winning, everybody forgets what it was like when you were down on the bottom. Nobody believed it. And everybody wants credit for it. But once you get through that, you go through stage 4. And that is where you develop a championship culture. And that is when your players take charge of the culture. They don't wait for you. They start getting on one another. After watching Florida State being with Coach Fleming, he's got the right culture going. I think that they deserve to be in. However, by the criteria that they set up, we want the 4 best teams. Florida State was not one of the 4 best teams at the end of the year because of the loss of their quarterback. They have a great defense, good offensive line, etc. However, Georgia is a 14-point favorite over Florida State in the bowl game. Now, if you're going to take the 4 best teams, why don't you take Georgia? Georgia's number 1 for 3 years in a row, and they lose by a field goal, and all of a sudden they're not in. Now, I understand why Florida State's upset, but the criteria, the 4 best teams at that time. Now, Florida State's not near as upset as the University of Michigan because they have to play Alabama, and they were they thought they were going to play Florida State. They were all for Florida State being invited.
So, okay, I guess I got to ask your predictions then for the semifinals here coming up. Michigan versus Alabama. Who do you like? And Washington versus Texas.
I think Alabama's a good football team, but they haven't been real consistent. But Nick Saban's done a great job. I think he's won 7 national championships. Only once has he gone through the season undefeated. He already had 1 loss. I think Michigan's going to find a way. I think Dockery, the quarterback at Michigan, most underrated quarterback in the entire country. I think that Michigan is not real fancy, but they execute the fundamentals. They run the football very, very well. Alabama on any given day can beat anybody, but also on any given day they're apt to struggle. But I think Michigan edges that one out. I think Washington is a very good football team. Penix used to be the quarterback in Indiana. Has done a tremendous job. I voted for him for the Heisman. He didn't win it. Dr. Daniels did from LSU. But I think when you really and truly look at it, you have to be impressed with what Washington did. However, you have to also be impressed with what Texas has done as well. They beat the University of Alabama in the first game of the year. You could possibly put Alabama in and leave Texas out with 1 loss, and that's why Georgia's not in. But I think that Texas finds a way to win the football game. I think they're a little more athletically from top to bottom. I think the championship game, I think Michigan wins it all.
Oh, wow. How about that? I'm sure the Ohio State fans will be happy to hear that as well.
Well, I remember this. I went to Ohio State or to Kent State. I had a professor there, Philip Traver, later when I became president of Miami of Ohio, taught a course called Ohio History. And I'll never forget, he said, Ohio and Michigan are 2 of the states to ever actually call out the militia, go to war, blood was shed. He said it was all over boundary dispute of Toledo. He said, I can't believe that history doesn't record who won the war, but I have to assume Michigan did because I can't believe we fought to keep Toledo. And I've never forgotten that. But you learn to dislike Michigan because being at Ohio State under Woody Hayes, I learned so much from him in so many different ways. We all bitch and moan about the way he was when we coach for. When we leave him, we all go coach just like he did at that time. But, when you get away from it, you just try to be fair and honest. You ask for an honest assumption. I'm going to give you an honest answer as I perceive it.
And that's why we love you and respect you, Coach, so much. But I want to ask, Notre Dame, it seems like over the last 10 years has had a little bit of a resurgence where they've played in a national championship game. They've been to the college football playoff. What does Notre Dame need to do to get over that hump to win the next national championship? The last national championship they won was with you as head coach in 1988.
Well, when I left, they asked Bob Davies what was his wish list. His first wish was ease up the schedule. In 88, when we won it, we beat 6 teams in the final top 10 poll.
Wow.
We beat 3 teams that were number 1, or they were number 2 because we're number 1. The schedule was very, very difficult when I was there. I think in 21 games, I think 16 of them were against top 10 football teams. That was the schedule. But what it did, you got used to playing against real good teams. You weren't amazed at the other people on the other side of the ball, how talented they were. But I think that Coach Freeman's an excellent coach. I think that he'll eventually lead us there. He's a good recruiter, good person. I like him greatly. I think that he understands Notre Dame. And when you get your players to understand Notre Dame, this is what scares me about the transfer portal. In the transfer portal, you have a guy started at Southern Cal as a freshman, and Georgia as a sophomore, started for West Virginia as a junior, started this year for Rice. That's 4 years. When you transfer, all you do is change the address of your problem. Let's teach people to pick a school because they want that school on their diploma. That's where they're proud of being part of it, etc. But no, the way it is now, if they don't have instant success, it's always somebody else's fault. They're going to run away. Stay there. Be patient. Get better. Learn your role. And lo and behold, leave that school with the diploma and know the alumni. So I just think that bothers me. And I think paying athletes is one. I think an athlete should be paid if he worked at McDonald's, but not to go to college. But how this happened? The coaches chase the money, then the schools chase the money, and the athletes chase the money. And you never have enough money. I went to college and never had any money in a pocket. I'd get a date, I would go window shopping. I'd give her $1,000, but the stores were all closed. You just had to, I want this. But you learn to enjoy life. People would say to me in college, hey, you need a haircut. Your hair is long. I said, I don't need a haircut. Go look in the mirror. I said, I don't look in the mirror. I look at my wallet. My wallet said, you don't need a haircut. So you learn to live with what you can afford and not what you want. And that's one of the problems we have in society today. Your rights, your privileges versus your obligations, your responsibilities.
Well, Coach, before we go over here, as I said, one of the greatest speakers of all time, give all the Americans out there that understand the hurdles that we're facing here in the United States of America, give us a little pep talk before we have to go out of the locker room onto the field of battle.
Well, those 3 rules: do the right thing, do the best you can, but the most important one is show people you care. I'm going to be 87 in probably 2 weeks. And my wife was a laid-back person. She didn't want to be an alumni. She said one person's enough. She'd done one interview in her life. She had cancer. And so she did the interview, and they said, what'd you learn from having cancer? She said, I learned how much my family loved me. We didn't love her anymore. We showed it. Why do we have to wait for somebody to have a catastrophe before we reach out and say, hey, we care about you. We appreciate you. And for everybody who's listening, I guarantee you, there are several people in your life who would help if you just call and say, hey, thank you for all you've done. I don't want anything. I just want you to know I genuinely appreciate you. And my wife would get mad. She'd say, how can you talk about loving people with the bumper sticker you have on your car? I had a bumper sticker on my car. I thought it was funny. She thought it was rude. We'd go to church Sunday morning. She'd make me park in the back of the lot. The bumper sticker said, Jesus loves you. Everybody else thinks you're an asshole. But I think that as you go along, let people know you genuinely care. You'll feel better, but more importantly, you'll make them feel better, and just have no regrets. When you put your head on the pillow at night, have no regrets for what you did that day and how you did it.
Well, Coach, earlier in the interview, you said that, if you get inside someplace, most of the time you're disappointed. The only 2 places that you've been inside where it's actually exceeded expectations was Notre Dame and Augusta National. Well, likely they also say that never meet your heroes because they disappoint you. But I can tell you, Coach, that you far exceed the expectation of absolutely everybody who gets the opportunity to know you. And I'm so glad that I've had the opportunity to get to know a hero like you, Coach. So, Coach, thank you so much for spending the time with me here on the Andrew Giuliani Show. And Merry Christmas to you and all the HOLTZ family.
Merry Christmas, and I want to thank you for the thorough preparation you made to do this interview. You made it very easy, but it's always fun to talk to a friend. Good luck and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Coach. Thank you again.